An instant classic between Alabama and Texas on the gridiron, a look into the dominant Horns volleyball team, and a recap of a wild Week 1 in the NFL. All that and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome to College Press Box. I'm your host, Justin Goosman, and he's Joseph Duffey. We've got a great show for you today. We will now take a look at highlights from the Texas-Alabama game this past Saturday. Alabama got on the board first with a 52-yard field goal from senior Will Reichard. Flash forward to the next Texas drive, Quinn Ewers connects with Jordan Whittington to set up a short kick as the Longhorns would tie it up 3-3. Alabama would score quickly on the next drive, but that didn't rattle the Texas offense as Ewers would connect with wideout Xavier Worthy for the diving grab at the 4-yard line. Later that possession, though, star quarterback Quinn Ewers would go down with a shoulder injury on this hit from Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. Unfortunately, Ewers would not return from the game. Following that play, set up by the penalty on the Ewers injury, running back Bijan Robinson would waltz right into the end zone and knot the game up at 10 apiece. Fast forward to the second half, one of the most bizarre safety, non-safety calls you will ever see. Refs called roughing the passer and targeting, but later reversed both calls and left it at 4th down. As you can see right here, the Texas fans were going insane, but with the inconsistency from the refs, the Texas fans had to move forward with the 4th down. Moving along to the beginning of the 4th, this is where Bryce Young starts to cook. He evaded the pressure and gets the 1st down and more. Later that drive, 4th and 3, Young connects with his target, Ja'Cory Brooks, to keep the drive alive. A couple plays later, Young, 1st and goal, evades the pressure again, spins and throws a dart right to running back Jahmyr Gibbs for the touchdown, and Bama would take the lead by 1. Coming up after that, under 2 minutes, Texas with the ball and a chance to put the game away, but Hudson Card gets walloped in the backfield and forced to settle for a 49-yard field goal. Texas takes it and it's good, but Bryce Young would get one more crack at it, and the Heisman winner would do Heisman-winning things. Young evaded the corner blitz and ran for another 20 yards, setting up Alabama nicely. That set up the potential game-winning field goal, and you can just feel as this kick comes up, the hearts of the Texas fans get ripped right out. As Will Reichard, the senior, nails the game-winning field goal, and Alabama would take the win to go on to a 2-0 record. Texas falls to 1-1 as they get ready to take on UTSA next week.
The Texas Longhorns lost an absolute heartbreaker Saturday afternoon against the #1 ranked team in the nation, the Alabama Crimson Tide. The game proved to surprisingly be a defensive showdown involving two historic programs. However, similar to the last matchup between these programs, the Horns faced a premature exit from their starting QB. This time, though, it was Quinn Ewers who suffered the tragic fate, as we now know that he suffered a clavicle sprain that is set to have him out at least 4 weeks. This leaves the Longhorns with plenty of questions for their impending schedule as we are nearing the end of non-conference play. Now we take it over to our very own Jason Kinander, who covered the game this past weekend. Here's what he had to say.
Texas and Alabama's instant classic showdown kicked off at 11 a.m. on Saturday. However, for Texas students, that morning started just a little bit earlier.
10 p.m. 10 p.m. 10 p.m. 10 p.m. You think it's worth it? Oh, hell yeah. That was a beer. You want to...
Numerous attempts from the university throughout the week to discourage camping were to no avail. The result? A palpable buzz outside Darrell K. Royal Stadium. One thing was clear in the air. The #1 team in the country was in town. The hype wasn't only felt around the stadium. Fans filled up ESPN's College Game Day before sunrise, bringing their score predictions and creative signs. The jury is still out on whether or not Texas football is back, but one thing's for sure, the fans never left.
The Longhorns now sit at 1-1 on the season, fresh off the nail-biting loss to Alabama this past Saturday. And now I'm lucky to be joined by our football analyst, Sebastian Rodriguez. Thank you for joining us, Sebastian. And I want to start by asking, how important was the defense during Saturday's matchup against the Crimson Tide?
Now, let me get straight to the point. The Texas defense did a phenomenal job to hold the Alabama offense to just 20 points. And a key piece of that performance was third-year linebacker Jalen Ford, who recorded 10 tackles and a sack, which helped the front seven consistently pressure Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. A consistent pass rush and a pressure-led offensive lineman jumping early while they anticipated the blitzes. With that being said, the front seven held Alabama to under 3.5 yards per rushing attempt, that being without the 81-yard run they gave up. And the key 4th-and-1 stop toward the end of the fourth showed the talent this defense has. On top of that, the Longhorn secondary held Young to a 7.9 yards per rushing attempt and allowed no completions for more than 23 yards. This defense proved that they have what it takes to keep up with one of the highest scoring offenses to a mere 20 points. The ceiling is looking quite high for this unit looking into the rest of the month of September.
Now, with the disastrous loss of elite quarterback like Quinn Ewers, how will the offense be tested with losing Quinn, and how can they adjust in his loss?
Well, the main priority for this offense is to keep consistent throughout the 4 quarters of play and to keep energy at a steadfast pace regardless of obstacles presented. As seen in the first quarter when Quinn Ewers was leading the offense, he was able to manage 9 out of 12 completions for 134 yards in the first quarter alone. However, when he went down, Hudson Card had to take over. This offense did struggle to keep that fast pace going, however. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. Hudson Card stepped up to the challenge and made sure Texas was still in the fight, completing 14 of 22 passes and throwing for 158 yards, while bearing an ankle injury shows his leadership, and what a better time to show it than on a Fox Big Noon kickoff.
Well, with that being said, how do you think the rest of the season will look based on Saturday's performance and with losing Ewers?
As I said a second ago, the defense needs to be consistent and the offense needs to maintain energy throughout the 4 quarters. Defensively, there can't be any big plays given up because although they did not let up too much, an 81-yard run and a more than 20-yard completion is enough to turn the tide of the game. Aside from that, defense is in shape to be one of the best in the conference if they keep playing the way they did Saturday. As for the offense, there needs to be more of a risk-taking mentality because there were a lot of missed opportunities that could have potentially put the Hornets up by maybe 1 or 2 scores as opposed to field goals. Especially if it is, say, 4th and 3 inside the 35, take more risks to get that first down, especially if that first down doesn't happen, your defense will be most likely guaranteed to get you a stop. And in close games such as Saturday, you need to bet big in order to win big. With that being said, the month of September belongs to Hudson Card. Ewers isn't expected to return until earliest October 8th against Oklahoma. Until then, there are 3 bouts against UTSA, Texas Tech, and West Virginia, respectively. In those games, you got to take shots downfield, especially when there's an opening. You just got to take it. But hands down, the key to the rest of the season is maximizing opportunities.
All right, thank you, Sebastian. Now we'll go back to Justin at the desk.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Sebastian. Next, we will have Kylie Rodriguez to talk about Texas volleyball when we return on College Press Box.
Welcome back to College Press Box. The number 1 ranked Longhorn women's volleyball team stands undefeated with an impressive 6-0 record after defeating Denver this past Friday. We will now go to Kylie Rodriguez, who will break down this past week in Texas volleyball.
I'd now like to welcome in our volleyball analyst, Kylie Rodriguez. Kylie, thank you for joining us tonight.
I'm glad to be here.
Kylie, what has UT volleyball been doing right against their opponents, and what should they continue to do well going into conference play?
Their performance has been good, to say the least. Their win on Friday showed their strengths, one being the positions are solid, meaning the players in their positions play at their best. Another contributor to the Longhorns' success is they don't have many holes in the team. And they also offensively working together, more specifically in their kills per set being 14.1 points, while the opponent's kills per set are 11.1. This helps them dominate the game. And their defense holds up by getting the digs and not letting the ball hit the floor. Don't forget about the new transfers and existing players who make the Longhorns' success happen.
Speaking about players, which players in particular have stood out to you so far? I know it's kind of cliche to say, but senior Logan Eagleston, just because she is such a big part of Longhorns' success. In the 6 games alone, her total attacking average 175. That's a lot for 6 games. But the attacking talent doesn't stop there. Maddie Skinner is a 2-time All-SEC selection and a 2020 national champion, an honorable mention All-American. She transferred to UT and has had an instant impact by her attacking average being 117 in the first 6 games. As I mentioned, UT Volleyball has solid players in all positions like Zoe Flack, who transferred from UCLA and was a 2-time Pac-12 Libero of the Year and All-American selection. She made a big impact on defense by having 101 digs in the first 6 games. These players are showing high numbers in their position for only being 6 games in. That's why they are my standout players so far. And once UT Volleyball gets into conference play, they should continue to post high numbers and make a big impact on the Longhorns' future success. Kylie, what does UT Volleyball need to fine-tune before conference play?
Although there are many things working for the UT Longhorns, the team has some areas of improvements. One of the main struggles is blocking. Their blocking errors in a game are 9, while the opponents are 8. If they want to make it far in the conference play and in the NCAA National Championship, they need to fix their blocking errors quickly. They also aren't successful blocking solo with only 5% in the opposition at 6. They need to work on this to give them a better chance in conference play and an NCAA volleyball series. One big area they struggle with is receiving, which sounds contradicting, but they are good at digging a spike, but they are not good at receiving from a serve. In their defense and digs per set, they have 3% lead over the opposition. In their receiving per set, they are at 1.3%, and the competition is at 1.5%. This is a must fix if Texas wants to win a championship. It might not matter right now, but when you get to conference play and the close games, that percent will be very important. Like I keep saying, there's still a lot of their season left to be played. They should improve on these skills throughout the season, but for now, the Longhorns face the Houston Cougars this Thursday at 8 p.m. in the Gregory Gym.
Thanks for joining us, Kylie. When we return, we will recap this past weekend in the NFL. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back into College Press Box. Now we go to NFL analyst Jordan Geelhoed and Tyler Moss, who will be breaking down this past weekend in the NFL.
All right, welcome in Jordan and Tyler. And Jordan, I'll start with you. After a drama-filled offseason, week 1 of the NFL finally is upon us, and the league wasted no time capturing fans' attention with some intense down-to-the-wire finishes in several matchups yesterday. Can you give us a little bit of a quick recap on the crazy endings that occurred in a few of the games?
Absolutely. Yeah, the NFL is never without drama and intensity, and we've received no shortage of that on Sunday. Firstly, let's start with the shocking upset of the Cincinnati Bengals by their division rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Fresh off their Super Bowl appearance, the Bengals hope to make it back to the big game this season, but the Steelers' defense came to play, intercepting Joe Burrow 4 times. The Bengals' offense somewhat recovered and scored at the last second, but Minkah Fitzpatrick blocked Evan McPherson's extra point attempt to send the game into overtime, where the usually sure-footed McPherson missed a kick again. The Steelers were ultimately able to come away with the W off of a walk-off kick from Chris Boswell. But McPherson isn't the only kicker to miss a field goal to win a game yesterday, as Young Hoku for the Falcons just couldn't put the game away and saw the Dirty Birds blow yet another lead as the Saints staged a comeback from a double-digit deficit in the fourth quarter. That game shouldn't be on him, though. The blame should be on Atlanta's porous defense that allowed the Saints to keep marching down the field and score. Now, it's not all bad for kickers, though, as Browns rookie Cade York drilled a 58-yard field goal with 8 seconds left to seal the victory for Cleveland after a hard-fought battle with their former disgruntled quarterback Baker Mayfield. Even with backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett, the Browns had to feel pretty good about winning over Mayfield, and head coach Matt Rule's seat has to be feeling pretty warm if Carolina keeps losing games like these. However, Brian Daboll has to be feeling pretty secure in his job after the incredibly gutsy decision to go for 2 in the final seconds of the matchup between his New York Giants and the Tennessee Titans. In a game where no one gave them a chance, the Giants' defense stood tall against Derrick Henry and rode a rejuvenated Saquon Barkley to victory against the reigning 1 seed in the AFC. And of course, we had our first tie of the 2022 season between the Texans and the Colts, as the Texans, a team no one thought twice about, jumped out to an early lead, but stagnant offenses and missed kicks caused the game to fizzle and end in a bit of a whimper in overtime. But even if no one is a fan of ties, this Sunday proved why everyone loves the NFL. Non-stop excitement every single week.
Well, they say week 1 of the NFL can also be known as overreaction week, and that's one game is hardly enough to judge a team. That being said, Tyler, which teams are you overreacting to on both a positive note and a negative one?
Well, it's hard to overreact with so many close games this opening weekend with a lot ending with 1 score each, but that doesn't mean we didn't witness a couple of dominant performances. The Chiefs looked effortless, blowing out the Cardinals 44-21 in Arizona, and Patrick Mahomes played a very efficient game, going 30 for 39 on passes with 5 touchdowns, and even losing star receiver Tyreek Hill in the offseason didn't put a damper on this offense. Mahomes completed passes to 9 different targets with tight end Travis Kelce and new additions Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling getting the most catches. However, ball security seemed to be an issue for the Chiefs, as they had 5 recorded fumbles throughout the game. If this issue is something that they are able to clean up, look for the Chiefs to be playing for the AFC Championship. Now, you might be wondering, why not the Super Bowl? And the answer is the Buffalo Bills will surely be standing in their way. The Bills made the defending Super Bowl champion Rams look like no competition in their 31-10 victory in Los Angeles, and Josh Allen was balling in the NFL season opener with 3 touchdowns through the air and another on the ground. His connection to Stephon Diggs was as electric as ever, but if opposing defenses focus on that, his wide receiver 2 Gabe Davis is an explosive playmaker as well. Their defense was stifling, with linebacker Von Miller recording 2 sacks against his former team, and the defense recording 7 sacks and 3 interceptions as a whole. Look forward to Week 6 when these two face off in Kansas City, as it feels like it will be the AFC Championship preview. Now, on the flip side, let's talk letdowns. For the second year in a row, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers looked terrible in their season opener. The new core receivers did not connect with Rodgers at all as they faced their divisional rival, the Minnesota Vikings. With an early divisional loss, you have to wonder, can the back-to-back MVP get his offense moving? Because if he doesn't, I like the Vikings to win the NFC North. And of course, you can't talk disappointments without bringing up the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys' only point scored was on a field goal on their opening drive, and after that, the offense disappeared. They had no drives over 50 yards, with 5 of them ending in punts and 3 turned over on downs. For what it's worth, the defense held up fairly well, holding the Bucs to field goal attempts on 5 of their drives, and Micah Parsons came away with 2 sacks. But the door was open for Dallas, but the offense didn't take a step towards it. With an injury to Dak Prescott late in the game and his expected 6 to 8 weeks out, the Cowboys are definitely not looking good.
Well, I'll close with you now, Jordan. Since it was the first week in the NFL, that also means that plenty of new head coaches were making their first starts on new teams. And it seemed to have worked out for whoever hired a head coach this offseason, as 7 of the 10 new teams. With that being said, what teams looked the most impressive under their new regimes?
I think the wins that looked most impressive to my eyes were from first-year coaches Kevin O'Connell for the Vikings and Mike McDaniel for the Dolphins, seeing as they made very decisive statement victories against past division rulers. For years, the Vikings have been considered the little brother of the Green Bay Packers in the NFC North, but Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson opened up the throttle on susceptible Packers secondary as Jefferson exploded out of the gate with 9 catches for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. And on the other side of the ball, the Packers are missing their 2 starting offensive tackles, and the Vikings took advantage, sending constant pressure in the face of reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers. Led by new outside linebackers Adarius Smith, their defensive front battered Rodgers with 4 sacks. When it comes to the AFC East, the Patriots have been in charge of the division for what has felt like forever, and even though the Dolphins still may have a lot of work to do if they want to take the division from the Buffalo Bills, new coach Mike McDaniel must have felt pretty good sending Bill Belichick home with a loss in their first meeting. The game plan on offense was perfect as he manufactured a bunch of run-after-catch plays for speedy wide receivers Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who both blazed past the Patriots secondary on their way to a win. And that defense is no joke either. Javon Holland and Melvin Ingram will haunt Mac Jones' nightmares this week as they nabbed a turnover each, with Ingram's going for a touchdown as well. And while neither of these coaches stepped into a complete rebuild situation like, say, the Giants or the Texans, it's still good for them to thrive in their new positions and set their teams up for victory.
And to finish up, Tyler, what matchups should we look forward to this coming week?
Well, I like the Chargers and the Chiefs on Thursday night in Arrowhead Stadium is one you definitely don't want to miss, as Justin Herbert and his team look to challenge the Chiefs' reign of the AFC West. And another big divisional game this week is the Bucs facing the Saints in New Orleans. Now, we know Tom Brady has yet to beat the Saints in the regular season in his tenure with the Bucs, so they'll be looking to change that this Sunday. And Sunday night, the Bears go to Green Bay to take on the Packers, so we'll find out if Aaron Rodgers truly does own this revamped Bears team with Justin Fields at the helm. All this and more in Week 2.
All right, back to you at the desk, Justin.
Thank you for that, Jordan and Tyler. When we return, we recap the last week in Texas sports. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome back into College Press Box. This past Wednesday, USA Swimming announced its 2022-23 roster, which includes 11 Longhorns total, 8 on the men's team and 3 on the women's team. Impressively enough, 8 of these Longhorns are current students on the 40 acres. Those 8 members on the national team represent the largest representation of any swimming program in the nation.
Sophomore Alia Moore was selected to play for the USA Nations League final 3v3 basketball team in Romania from September 14th through the 16th. This comes after Moore's team went 18-0 to win the Americas Conference and advance to the final stage. Moore continues to prove she is a valuable big in this new age of 3v3 basketball, and the U.S. will begin play on Wednesday.
Yesterday, the 23rd ranked Longhorns women's soccer team absolutely dominated the Rio Grande Valley Vaqueros with a final score of 5-0. Lexi Mismo had 2 goals, now creating her career 4th multi-goal game, while graduate goalkeeper Savannah Madden recorded her 19th career solo shutout. The Longhorns are now 4-0-1 in their last 5 games and look forward to extending their hot streak against the Texas Southern on the 40 acres this coming Thursday.
Taking a look ahead on This Week in Longhorn Sports, soccer takes on Texas Southern Thursday at 6, volleyball plays Houston at 8, and will also be in action the next day against High Point at 7. Saturday, football will be back in action against UTSA at 7 p.m. at DKR Memorial Stadium, and Sunday, soccer will take on UCF at 1.
Well, that'll wrap up things for us on this week's episode of College Press Box. Make sure to tune in to our other shows this week, including College Crossfire on Wednesday and 1-0 Sports on Friday. On behalf of all the crew here at TSTV, I'm Joseph Duffey. He's Justin Goosman. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.